Welcome to What Brought You Here Today, an interview-style mental health podcast that focuses on real experiences and how we navigate and move through them. The guests on this show provide personal and professional insight at times and come from all walks of life. Not all of the guests work in the mental health field, and they've all chosen to be brave and vulnerable while sharing parts of their story with you. Please keep your own mental health and well-being in mind while listening. The topics in this episode are sensitive. If you experience any distress while listening, please pause and return at a later time. Please take care while listening.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to What Brought You Here Today. I am your host, Ryan. Today, I am joined again with, Amanda is joining me today. Amanda Ferrari. She's a social worker. Forgot my words for a second, probably from all that chit-chatting we just did before this. But I'm joined with Amanda? Okay. Amanda's here with me again today. She's been on the podcast before. If you've listened to any of the previous seasons, you will recognize her. She is a social worker from Chicago. We've known each other for quite some time now, which is kind of wild and just like the way that time works, like years at this point. We met in an online book club through social media, and here we are. I think this is your third time on third time on in 4 seasons, so that's amazing. We're going to talk a lot about couples therapy, politics, and just see what else comes up. So for those of you listening, we will likely touch on some sensitive topics today, including politics, and probably some topics including the state of the world, particularly here in Minneapolis, so just make sure that you take care of yourself while listening. Thanks for being here, Amanda. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Ryan, for having me. I'm so happy to be back here for a third time. I think since I was here last, I've been married and I've had a last name change. Prior episodes were probably under Amanda Pearson or Resilient Social Work, kind of rebranded. You could find me on social media under Therapy with Amanda. And in general, as a therapist, I'm both an individual and couples therapist here in Chicago. And in general, I practice very relationally. So even when I'm working with my individuals, there's often a relational component therapeutically, but also individuals are obviously comprised of multiple systems and relationships themselves. So it's something that I really like to witness, work with, study all the things. And I think when we bring up topics like gridlocked or hot button issues in couples therapy, especially things like politics, when people simply don't agree, it can be a challenging topic because at the end of the day, I'm there to be a couples therapist. I'm not there to be the judge. I'm not there to be the person that's steering people from right and wrong, who's right, who's wrong, the morality police, if you will. And so some of my perspectives here may just be a little bit off-putting. And I really lean into the reality of the folks that I see and the position that I'm being asked to be in that space. So it's tricky when you have your own personal beliefs or, hard feelings on something and people simply don't agree. And you kind of got to hold that in and manage it in that space because there's a job to be done. And so I just want to give that little warning that it might not feel the most PC or politically attuned with what you think a social worker or a therapist might say, because again, I'm not here to be the morality police. So I just want to give that little disclaimer as we dip into that topic because it's a tough one.
Yeah. I think also speaking from the social work lens, your ethical duty in this space is really, I guess, specific or particular to the therapeutic role, right? The duty is to show up and serve and kind of, do what is most supportive, right? In terms of safety and harm reduction. And that can also, I think, especially too for me as, my board is different, in LPCC, but that's still, that line still applies, right? That we come from this harm reduction approach. And it can be really hard, I think, too, when you're balancing your own political beliefs and what's happening in your own world.
There's some really challenging concepts as a couples therapist, a therapist in general, but something that I do is I run a couples group, and the topics that come up there, the amount of triangulation or countertransference that a couples therapist can feel in that space, doubles to triples what you might be experiencing in an individual space when you have that relationship, because you're working with such raw emotionality and frankly, not only one person's opinions, but their spouse's call outs, their opinions. And so it's challenging because you're absolutely right. As a social worker, I am there to psychoeducate and make sure that we have clean, healthy facts about what's going on while also meeting people where they're at with dignity and respect and knowing that it is not my job to change people's beliefs and mold them into who I want them to be, right? So it's a balancing act, and I have to check myself and get supervision often. you know?
Yeah, valid. I think that's we're fortunate to be in a field where supervision can be ongoing and not viewed as like a shameful thing to need.
I can't imagine not having
No.
a supervision group for couples therapy ever.
Oh my
And
gosh.
if I'm like in my 70s or 80s seeing like two couples, like I will need some support. Like this is not for the faint of heart.
Absolutely. I hope you're retired by your 80s, though.
I hope so too. I always just picture myself. I'll have funkier glasses, you know, really cool outfits, a lot of scarves. I'll be very chic.
Just
so.
not even care.
Yeah,
Just very
exactly.
chic and not even care.
And just like numb, unfazed.
So desensitized by then. All right, let's jump in. So for context, we are recording, it's February 27th here in Minneapolis. For those who have been, and Amanda's in Chicago, not far, about 6-hour drive, right? So we're like close geographically. If you remember, Chicago went through kind of the political uprising and some of the federal agents and ICE surges last year. Wait, I was there in September.
Mm-hmm. And you messaged me prior feeling a little anxious. So I imagine it was end of summer. It was kind of picking up.
Yeah. And so now, again, so the context here is that, you know, ICE has been here for like quite some time in Minneapolis, but Metro Surge started a couple months ago and continues on, not in the extreme levels that it was even just a couple weeks ago, but they're still here and they're still present. So again, just like giving some context as we have these conversations, because they are sensitive, they are really jarring, I guess, and can be really difficult for people to also listen to again after the fact. So I just want to put that out there, that if you are listening, and for Amanda and I to just be cognizant of like our own feelings and reactions that come up. A lot of this is still fresh for me as it's still happening. But I do want to jump in and just talk about what you're seeing, because you haven't been on. I didn't record it all last year. So like the presidency hadn't changed since our last recording.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious on what shifted in your practice when that presidency changed, first of all, and now just continuing that like momentum, right? We're like a year and a half in. Sadly, it still feels like there's so much time to go of what's happening with people. What are you seeing in relationships? What's showing up in your office? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it feels like the general energy or vibe in the space definitely shifted. And I remember back when the election occurred, like even the yoga class that I went to each week at my practice, the instructor couldn't show. She didn't have it in her to show up for the class. And some people, right? People have different opinions and views. But a lot of people that I was witnessing, and you could see it even when you're walking outside, people are like gray, looking down, were pretty rocked and fearful, right? And so when we talk about concepts of like anxiety, panic, fear, doom, creating a life worth living, making meaning and value and morality and ethics, and these big words that I'll probably use a lot today, I think it really confused people in terms of how to make sense of their own emotions and their own meaning with the world around them for the next 4 years. And it says this isn't new, right? Like we've been here, and it's kind of been like whiplash for us Americans, I think, in a lot of ways, regardless of where you're seated politically, right? And so I think there's that, but then there's also the communal shift. And I think people having a lot of fear and distaste around other people. Even when you hear how people discuss, like, I cannot believe, like, what was it, like 50 to 51% of women voted Trump or something like that. And I think there was a lot of initial processing of just like the statistics that we have access to. And then people feeling uncertain of even like the person to their right and left at work, family, things like this. It felt like the malicious nature of things turned up, right?
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
the way that people perceive and view not only things politically, right, but also humanity. And I think that that's the tough part, especially when someone realizes that their partner who they've been with for decades, they've slept next to in bed for however long, that they love from the bottom of their heart, have children with, whatever, really doesn't stand in the same beliefs. And at this point, those beliefs can become pretty stark and pretty headbutty, right? Because it's like, who are you? What do you believe? What are your values? So I've seen it get deeper, darker, more malicious, more ugly in a way that I haven't quite felt before. And I think that, of course, that does come back to a little bit of like the extremism that we are in and the fight in the extremes and the them versus us kind of mentality. right? And I think that some of that gets dangerous when we go into a couples context, when we go into a familial context, because now we're kind of at war with our loved ones rather than being able to sit and have a respectful, understanding conversation. And I think that's where we've gotten really, really lost and where it becomes really challenging to hold that space.
Yeah. When you think back, right, like you mentioned, we've been here before, right? We've like done this circus before. This time feels worse.
Yeah.
Right? Like this time feels much more extreme, much more whiplashy. I'm curious, I guess, is there like a greater, how do I want to say this? Are you finding people like justifying the vote compared to like the first time and the second time? Okay.
I'm hearing a lot of people, and I will say, I work with a lot of heterosexual couples, cis couples. And to be completely frank, I have multiple couples on my caseload that have seen 1, 2, 3 plus couples therapists and find themselves with me because it has not worked out with other clinicians because the male partner has felt ostracized, bullied, attacked, judged by female clinicians in the past, right? Never any shade to other clinicians because, again, countertransference, triangulation, this is challenging. Yeah. Not every
it's hard to hold space for
us, right? Especially when we're talking about high acuity and intense conflict couples. I empathize. And I'm in a very unique and sensitive position. For me, it feels like a privilege to not only help the system that's in front of me and to meet them where they're at with kindness, non-judgment, compassion, respect, but to also understand that for me, when I work with men's mental health, which is a passion of mine, we're working for men because men are humans and they deserve that support, as well as the reality that helping men helps women, which helps children, which helps society. So I see this work as a snowball effect where, you know, it's a delicate tightrope dance. And if I ruin the rapport by being like, you can't say that, how dare you have voted that, blah, 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 I'm gonna lose that opportunity to make that impact. So for me, this is very serious. When I have a couple that lands on my couch in this space, it is tender. It is very, very tender. And what I've really learned, to go back to the question, is this time around, there's a lot more humility and willingness to admit regret. From what I've noticed, of course, like there are pockets, like yes. I'm not here to generalize, and I'm sure people do stand with their votes. But I've noticed a lot of men, particularly in my case of the clients that I see, sitting in regret. And I've also seen their female partners holding it above their heads in a way because it's something that they can never take back and something that their partner is inherently hurt, scared, worried about, and where it becomes a point of resentment or conflict in a major way because, again, we're uncertain who's the person standing next to me. But at the same time, I think it's a really beautiful thing to allow us to have discernment, to allow us to critically think, and to be able to change our minds. And I think it's a real green flag that even maybe the rightest of right men are changing their minds in some way, are seeing the malicious intent and the evil behaviors going on in our streets. People are being hurt, killed, taken from their loved ones. And if we can't have like a moral collectiveness of like, this is wrong, I get scared about humanity. I like to believe that humanity has an inherent goodness and that humans have an inherent goodness. And so I work my hardest to be able to see that, whether someone changed their mind or they're not able to change their mind. But is their partner able to see it? That's the work that we have to do in that space.
Yeah. I think too also like you and I need to acknowledge like we are two white women in blue states who have a great deal of privilege. So as we have this conversation too, recognizing that for me, many of my clients come from that same background.
Yeah.
Right. And I think by nature of being in a blue state, the conversations inherently look different. Right. Like we're just, the conversations look different than someone who is in a different state or a different city. Right. Or even like rurally speaking here in Minnesota where it's much more red, like the conversations are different. Even with my own family who live out in the red, like conversations look different. When you talk about, okay, I'm curious, who's driving the bus? Is it the husband? Is it the partner? Is it the wife? Like who's driving this bus to your couch?
Yeah. And again, back to that, the mention you just made about like privilege and us being in blue states and blue cities most particularly.
Yeah.
We're also talking about like the couples that I'm working with not only are typically like cis heterosexual male female couples, but also are happy to live in a blue state in a blue city and probably have a lot of friends who are having similar dialogue, to be honest. And so in that context, what I notice is a lot of women dragging the male partner to therapy to try to have help. It's like they're recruiting help to feel heard, to feel understood, or sometimes to want to change their partner. Sometimes realizing that, dang, I did not do this whole critical thinking, discernment, really getting to know this person that I married way back when, and I didn't realize the importance until now. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And so it's some really grueling conversations around even things like character. But it's different. Sometimes a male partner brings the other, and it's really cool also to see when a couple comes forward, like, this is something that we wanted to do for us. We want to make sure we clean this up. And before we have kids or for our kids, we want to model that healthy communication. And even if we have some differing beliefs, we want to be able to lead with respect. And there's nothing I love more than a couple that comes in with that intention.
Yeah. Are you finding yourself doing a lot more of like values resetting and even like exploring, like, let's go back to what my values as a person, as an individual are?
Absolutely. Because I will literally be able to hear the news source that the different clients are reporting their feelings from, right? Where it's like they're talking about the same issue, but the tone in which they're talking about it sounds very different, or the facts that they're pulling to lead their argument with are so different, and they're frankly triggering each other with it. Because it's like, you just got that from Instagram, you keep watching Fox News, blah, 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 right? And I have to be like, okay, whoa, here's the fact of what's going on. When we strip all the noise, right, left, that, all this away, and we actually looked at the fact of what's going on, almost every time that couple is able to come back to their values and see each other. But we have to strip back the emotions that we lead with, because typically, like, emotions like anger, frustration, judgment, disgust, way easier to access than fear, concern, like worry, just wanting to be heard. Whatever's under that is often very hardened on that top layer. So we have to do some like onion peeling, and often, yes, digging into a couple's like ethics or values or inherent beliefs, going back to their childhood, how they were raised, some attachment stuff, what's having you look at the world in this way, can really help them speak the same language. Where even if we view something slightly differently, if we can understand that the same things we as a family, we as a unit, our little family believe is wrong, unjust, not okay, something that we want to educate our kids about, that's where this can be really powerful. Where it gets challenging is when maybe we realize that those inherent values really don't align, right?
Yeah.
And this then becomes a conversation that's not so couples therapy. It becomes a little bit more what in couples therapy world people graduate on when they're determining whether they want to divorce or not, to discernment therapy. And I'm not a qualified discernment therapist. I'm good. I'll pass on that.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to enter that territory of like, what does this mean for you in your future, right? And of course, there's so many sessions and digging that before we ever get to that topic, but we have to be real about that, and that's what couples therapy is. Are we evolving together in a cleaner, healthier way, or are we realizing that we're going to be healthier as individuals?
Yeah. How do you... Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you have to be in that. I was going to ask, like, how do you, as the therapist and clinician and professional in the room, maintain your own boundary of even saying, like, here's the facts, right? Like, I might view the facts differently than they do. And how, like, what are you doing for yourself, or how do you show up in those moments where you're like, well, actually, that's right?
With a lot of tenderness, and this is where I lean on the rapport and relational nature that I build with every client or couple I work with, really hard to challenge. I challenge with so much kindness, where I will maybe restate the fact, and I will self-disclose a smidge, right? Of like, I have my own feelings about it, and I can completely understand where it's coming from in this way. And I'm wondering if in some way it's bringing up the, we pick up on it. We have the same like nervous system responses in that space of like, whoa, right? And so if I'm having a feeling like, oh gosh, I wonder if they actually believe this thing, it allows me to be that liaison voice for the partner that maybe can't access that. And so it's a moment to use our clinical skills. I wonder if, I'm curious if, ... love that skill. She's feeling a little bit afraid of what might happen if this does get worse. And if we do have to leave or something like this, and like, can we play that tape forward and meet her in her fear? I'm always getting back to the emotions. I'm not here to rewire your political beliefs. You guys can do that separately. And I will encourage oftentimes when a couple's super combative around politics, I invite them to almost do exposure therapy, where we'll pick a topic, whether it's in session or out of session, and we use our fair fighting rules to go there. We want to be a healthy married couple that communicates and can move through these complex topics. We need to be able to have dialogue where we're not screaming at each other and belittling each other. And so we need to build that skill. If we want to stay together, that's not my job, is to help you guys meet in the middle and hear each other with kindness. Because if we can't get there, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid question. And I think a question that a lot of people are having, even before even going to couples therapy. In my experience, I don't work with couples, right? I only work with individuals, but I am seeing a lot of women show up and be like, what am I even doing in this marriage? Like, here's a referral. You and your partner need to go talk about this more in depth than what you're saying. The unfair fighting, the shaming, the belittling, because that's not going to end well for anyone.
And I love an individual referral as a subtle form of those sound like some heavy things to dig into and understand where you started to believe those things. Maybe this is something that you, sir, can, dig into with an individual therapist, right? Mm-hmm. Because it is worth also putting a critical lens for these people that believe these things of do you really believe these things? And if so, why and where did that come from? Just kind of like our core beliefs or inner critic, we're here to explore those things. Is this what mom and dad told you you're supposed to believe or blank? Right?
Yeah.
At what point did you start to challenge those beliefs,
Yeah. I think that's interesting that you bring up, because that's been some of the conversation too here of in my work and just in general of well, my parents always voted Republican, so why would I do anything different? It's an interesting thought, because also you're an adult and you're not actively choosing not to educate yourself. And maybe, unfortunately, now harm has been caused because of those decisions, right? Which I don't think any one of us could have predicted how terrible it was going to be this time around and how terrible it continues to be. But helping people kind of understand that you still get to be a grown-up in this situation and make a choice for yourself, not one that your parents made back in the 90s, right, when the world was a different place.
And this is what I mean when I use that word discernment. And this is only going to become a bigger, louder, more important word with things like AI and just falsities around everywhere. But we have to remember that we are autonomous beings. And if we're just putting on that same extreme news channel and consuming and regurgitating, I don't think we're doing anyone favors, regardless of where you sit. You need to know not only the objective facts that are necessary to know. There's certain things that don't need to be seen, and I have my opinions on that. There's a lot of vicarious trauma going on, us witnessing things that don't need to be seen, videos with no trigger warnings. It's a little far, but to kind of reel that back a little bit, when it comes to, I lost my train of thought, of course. Where was it going?
The word discernment and it becoming bigger.
Thank you. Yeah. The word discernment's only going to become bigger with the reality of AI, complex things, and the reality that we need to be able to have our own thoughts, feelings, opinions on things. Because if we're in a world of being outside of these extremes, we need to understand personally where we stand on a belief. And also, I think in order to reach people in a respectful dialogue, we need to have our own opinions or vantage point of this is why I see this way. Or, hey, I can totally see that right there. I think we need a little bit more of that validation before defense in couples therapy and everywhere else. But to be able to say even to your partner, I objectively see why X can be a belief. And emotionally, this is what it brings up for me. And I've also noticed a little bit of the difference between partners and just the emotional impact of these topics, whether we're talking about ICE or maybe we're talking about even just saying the name. I'll just say trigger warning, Epstein files, right?
Oh, yeah.
I am noticing a difference in what people can take on, right? Whether you're a survivor or an empath, or someone that works in the person first field, and then they'll have another partner who's maybe in corporate America and consuming things between meetings and is really regulated and able to talk about it. There's also this other component of we can have our thoughts and beliefs, but we also need to have compassion and gentleness, because this is really rocking and traumatizing a lot of people, right? And so discernment is also, who am I talking about and how can I treat them like a human in this moment and not fight them like we watch our president fight other leaders or people on the news anchors fighting each other. Let's be the bigger, better people. Let's be the people that lead with kindness, respect, and critical thought.
Let's talk about that emotional piece. I think it's, how do you as a couples therapist, or even what are some maybe just general tools or ways to open this conversation, because I do think there are some pretty strong differences sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes between partners, just in terms of their emotional intelligence, their emotional awareness, right? Like how insightful they are to even like be impacted, right? Like there are
Great
people
point.
who can watch the videos and just be like, well, that happened. Okay, right, scrolling on to the next one. And then there's also people who are like, their world is completely rocked and destroyed by it. And like, I don't even know, like, how do you even begin those conversations when the emotional awareness is so different?
Yeah, that's
And maybe
really...
it's more than just emotional awareness. Maybe there's like more layers to it than that. Like if you can watch a video, like when Alex Preddy was shot here, like that video went up so fast and was everywhere with no warning.
No warning. But that is
None.
one also.
Zero.
Well, while I just said that we don't need to see videos, like there's nothing more stark in evidence than that video, right? Of just like...
Right.
That was also such a stark moment in time, right? Of how people perceive that. And that's also another moment, unfortunately, back to the conversation of privilege. I do believe, in a way, it took a white man who's a nurse and worked for the VA. And I know it's intense things to say, to pass, to get certain people to open their eyes and to understand the depth of this issue. And rest in peace. I mean, like what, like a fallen angel that fought for a cause, you know? But I also think in some ways that called people to action, that called other, frankly, white men to see that like, oh, it could be me, you know? Like that compassion exercise. And I think when you're asking about like the emotional component, that is what we're talking about. And that is our job as couples therapists. If, you know, one of the modalities I use most is emotionally focused therapy, EFT. You'll talk to me about the most ridiculous conflict that you had over like the cutting board, right? And I'm going to be bringing it back to childhood and the trigger and that like emotion that it brought up in that moment, or the core belief that's being fed, right? Because that's what this is really about. And sometimes for one partner, it takes something like Alex passing to feel the depth that their partner has been feeling for months, right? That's an opportunity to meet, right? Or if you're noticing maybe a partner that's not so emotive about this and not able to see their partner's reality because maybe they're more logic driven. I also work with a lot of neurodivergent couples where there's very different processing around topics like this, right? There's no wrong way to process. So we are normalizing helping each other understand how the other is feeling. So if the partner who's a little less emotionally attuned is there, we're going to work to help dig with the more emotional partner, not only to help them process what's going on, but to help that partner understand really what this means to them and how it's impacting them. Even what potentially it's bringing up from their stuff, their trauma, but also fears for the larger world. And how can we support each other, protect each other, support our little family through the reality that we are in. And you notice, like, someone's got to be a real bad bug to sit with their partner and see them going into the raw depths, opening their heart emotionally and not be able to access that emotional attunement or compassion or like, whoa, I get it now.
Yeah. Even empathy, right?
Exactly. Sometimes it takes having to see someone like you go through something, or having to really strip down and get really granular with the depths and understanding of why someone's feeling that way, for some people to access empathy. And that upsets some people, that it's hard for those people to access that empathy. But not all people are built the same in terms of emotional attunement. And a lot of times with the couples that I see, it's that other partner's first time in a therapy room at all, right?
Sure.
And so we're working on it, we're building it, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's another reason why couples therapy can be a beautiful resource for couples, and also for men who are scared to enter that space in general, where they can create that safe, trusted space with their partner. Hopefully. That's the experience that I hope that people are able to have, but it's complicated. Yeah. You can even hear it in the way we're talking about it. It's so complicated because it doesn't always go this way. It's clunky. I've had ruptures with clients. I've said the wrong thing. I've been a little harder than I intended to be. I've gotten triggered in a session. I'm human too, right? And this is really like complex, tender, sensitive things. And when you're watching someone crumble and then someone desensitized to their crumble, it's brutal to watch at times. So it's a dance. I'm in a relationship with this couple, not romantically, obviously. But they're trying to work me out of the equation. That's the goal. But therapy is so relational, and we are all so interconnected. There's not a reality where right now in this political environment, we're witnessing different things. Like we were talking about earlier, like this is collective. People are dealing with this in way deep depths of severity and impact, and we're all witnessing it, where we have this like unique opportunity to really go there.
I think it's also really important to note, like, we are all doing this together in real time.
Yes.
None of us, clinicians, professionals, right? Like people who work in the corporate world, like all of us are on the same kind of like playing field in terms of this is happening in real time for every single one of us. We've never done this before, especially like our generation, right? Like millennials, previous generations have been through also a lot of things, right? We can acknowledge that the past has happened, but it becomes really hard. And I think too, like even as like a mom and a woman and a human being, like someone living in Minneapolis proper, like the VA, I drive by the VA every day. It's like, you also don't know how you feel because there's so many feelings and how you think you're supposed to feel. And I think that's like really important to acknowledge that we're being told and fed and like so much shit is being spewed at us all the time that we think we should feel a certain way about this. And if we don't, that says something about us.
Sounds like grief.
Yeah.
You know, like as a grief therapist too, I want to touch on that. Thank you for saying that. You articulated that so much better than I could, and it was exactly what I was going for. This is our first time being humans too. We don't have the answers. I wish I did. I wish I had more control. I feel very similar levels of helplessness to my clients, and I have to find my own forms of advocacy outside of being a therapist. And for me, the last couple of months, that's looked like calling my reps. Just small act, but it gave me this tangible feeling of some control and some impact that I have capacity for that in other ways I can't access right now, right? And going back to that topic of grief, this is another thing that may sound controversial, but I'm going to say it. There's a lot of shame for grievers, and we will all be a griever at some point. If you're not already a griever, you will be. It's the human condition, right? Where it is expected that when someone goes through a loss, they are expected to be all consumed by that loss and not okay. And if you feel a glimmer of joy or a moment of calm, or you find yourself laughing at, your favorite sitcom or whatever, shame. How dare I feel joy when this loved one is gone, or when people are going through this tragedy, or people are being taken on the streets, stripped from their families. Oh yeah, I have like chills talking about this right now. But of course, our humanity is that emotional response. And grief is oscillation. It's moving through feeling, and so is trauma, right? We have to oscillate the depth of like, this is so hard. There are so many feelings. There is so much collective trauma and systematic issues going on. And we have to go outside. You need to get some sun. You need to eat some food. We got to walk. We got to breathe. We got to come back to ourselves. You need to get into community. You deserve to have a hug from your partner. Go break some bread with your family members, right? Even if you have a family member who doesn't agree with you right now, maybe that's the very thing that we all need. Maybe that's the ultimate act of rebellion in some ways, outside of our advocacy, being able to pour back in to take care of ourselves and to love on fellow humans. And the fact that that in of itself could be a controversial statement is where I get a little lost in all of this. Because I will always be leading with love. I'll always be leading with kindness. We'll always be hoping that people do change their minds. People do learn to discern and critical think more, to have opinions, and to be able to have this dialogue. Nothing's going to change if we cannot have respectful dialogue.
Right. Which I think, like, before we started recording, I was telling you about a training that I took that is really rooted in, like, showing up with dignity and competence, that viewing people from a lens of dignity and competence, right? Like, we all want to have our dignity. We're all competent to do these things and feel our own emotions and make our own decisions. And thinking about this grief journey, also, like, joy, we need to have joy so that we have hope, so that we can still get out of bed every morning, so that we can advocate and do the things. I think also people are maybe like wanting to hold on to some grief to not do the things, rather than acknowledging, I'm so exhausted and like I'm so tired and I have been trying to do all the things and nothing's worked. Like just that like overall helplessness feeling, rather than saying like it's okay to feel grief around whatever the loss is, right? Like the loss of a human being, the loss of women's rights, the loss of like some of our autonomy, all of these things that we keep finding. And I think like part of it, that's like the conversation I'm also having to have of like, it's okay to, all of these things can exist together.
Exactly. It just does. It just is.
Yeah.
They are existing together.
Right. Like you
To
can have
ignore it,
grief and hope.
we have to.
Yeah. And I think that's where like that supposed to feeling comes in of like, if I feel grief for this, then I can't have hope because they can't exist at the same time. But we're also like really smartly made human beings with a brain that can do both.
And compartmentalize, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Like, I mean, just thinking like I compartmentalize a bazillion times a day, partly because of my work, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, right? Like it can't be thinking about everything at once. And I will admit, like sometimes that compartment breaks open and everything erupts and, then I take a mental health day.
Yeah,
But
it's
like,
okay to take a break.
yeah, but I think coming back to this collective trauma and there's so much below grief that I think we have no way of knowing what this means for the future. And I think that's scary for a lot of people, a little bit for myself included. Like,
Yeah.
but just like, what does this mean? What does this, and this is, like a bigger conversation, and maybe this comes up in your office too, of just like, what does this mean for my 5-year-old as she grows up? Right? Like, what does this mean for our kids and us as we get older and kind of hopefully at some point come out of some of this trauma? I'm not at all saying it's going to go away because it's not. Right? We will be recovering from this for a long time, but something has to end at some point. And then what? And that's the part, I think that's the part of like, what happens when I come out of fight or flight? That's what I'm trying to get at.
You're going to crash. We're all going to crash,
Yeah.
right? That's how this goes.
Yeah.
The reality is exactly what you're saying is so true. And we are in so much unknown. And the unknown is where anxiety thrives. So like I said prior, the boost in anxiety, the boost in like this concept of like helplessness, hopelessness, etc., is where I perceive like one of my main forms of advocacy is put on your helmet, show up as a therapist today for the variety of different experiences here, right? And knowing that I'm going to be working with a lot more anxiety, a lot more nervous system dysregulation, a lot more unknown, a lot more fear for the future. I'm pregnant. How can I be pregnant right now? I have a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with this 5-year-old? I'm learning that my husband has these totally different beliefs. Or even, this is all going on and my parent just went into hospice. This is all going on and I just got laid off. This is all going, there's so much going on in the world, right? Micro, meso, macro levels in people's individual world. We can't feel it all at once. We must oscillate, and it is our job, I believe, as therapists to help people find that hope and to help step out of a little bit of that helplessness whenever possible. And it's going to look different for every individual because we don't process the same. We don't meaning make the same. We don't have capacity, resources, financial investments, time in the same ways. And so something that I also wanted to know while we're on this topic is the narrative too of shame when people aren't doing it all is also contributing to this issue, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're not giving humans permission to be processing and existing and moving through this realistically. We're encouraging performative activism if we're pressuring. If you're not blah, 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 unfollow me if blah, 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 blah. Those narratives are not helping us, right? And it's increasing these concepts of hopelessness, helplessness, because now we don't believe in the person next door. Now we don't believe in our neighbor. Right. Now we're moving into individualism. That only gets darker and darker, right? We need to lean into community supports and to believe in goodness, or we're all screwed.
Yeah. I think we also need to, no, I agree. And I think we also need to recognize shame is a powerful motivator. So powerful. We do not want to feel that shame. It is a bad, icky, terrible feeling. And so it, in every aspect, right? Like shame is very powerful. So how do you find a different motivator? How do you find a different reason? Mm-hmm. And I think too, like, how do you find the reason behind, like to find that motivation that aligns with your values? Because nobody's value is shame-based.
Oh yeah. No, never. Shame's not helpful. It never is.
No. And I think like, again, Minneapolis feels less, I think, of that shame-based, less performative-based because of the community that we do have here and that we have built here. But even thinking on more of like the individual basis, a lot of people are like, it's normal now for me to get extra groceries at Costco for mutual aid. So now it doesn't feel like I'm doing enough.
The ceiling, the bar just keeps rising.
Yeah. And what then? The bar's going to snap, right? You can only pole vault over that so high. And then what? Like, when is enough enough?
What is good enough?
Yeah.
I use that question so much with a lot of folks in this context, but also back to couples.
Yeah.
What is good enough? What do you need to see from your partner? Because also on this topic, we'll see the same thing. My partner doesn't advocate like I do. I'm pushing and I'm going to every protest. I'm doing the mutual aid. I'm babysitting, I'm anything that I can, any resource I can provide, one partner is doing and the other partner is just survival mode. Or they just got laid off and they're like riddled with depression. There's a lot of layoffs going on in Chicago right now. People's worlds kind of stop when you're in that place. So
Yeah.
kind of concept I'm throwing through there. But again, this modeling of people have different experiences and processing with this. And so what for partners are good enough? How do we want our little family to handle this? Is it okay that our approach looks different at different times? When we zoom out, I do this a lot too when the bar keeps getting raised, whether it's a couple or an individual, right? When we zoom out and we look at a bird's eye view of our life and our advocacy, where we spend our money, where we donate, where we volunteer, how we support others, the kindness that we move through, we're not going to be able to do it all of the time. But when you zoom out of this very moment, how do you feel overall? And how do we want to respond to that to create some consistency or norms that do feel values aligned and good to me and good enough when I don't have capacity? There has to be a good enough at times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the secondary maybe question to like, at what cost? At what cost are you going to keep trying to do all of these things? Because you will hit the limit and it will crumble.
I've seen a lot of burnt out moms over the past few months.
Hi.
I know. And just like pedal to the metal. How can I volunteer? How can I educate? How can I know all of the things and do all the things? And like, I work with also on the side, besides couples, a lot of kind of like perfectionist, over-functioning, managing moms who are so out of control right now. There is no sense of control, right? So yeah, I think that's an excellent question, is like, for how long can we survive in this burnout and how can we start helping you heal while also feeling like you're making the impact that feels right to you? I've seen people in chronic stress and chronic fatigue now ongoing for like 6+ months from just hitting nose to the grindstone. Hey, remember, that book we read, was it Body Keeps the Score or the Gabor Mate book?
The Myth of Normal.
The Myth of Normal, where it's kind of like these things catch up to us. If you don't stop, if you don't pause, you're going to get sick, whether it's like a cold or flu or something worse. There's more. There's more to you as a being than being an advocate. And you also have to have support and lean on your people to be able to advocate. So I think it's like a full circle concept. You got to take care of you to be able to keep fighting this fight.
We're also not meant to do it, to do everything alone. Early on here, a lot of my conversations were, you need to pick a lane and you need to stay, that is your lane. If your lane is protesting, that's your lane. If it's getting groceries, because other people are also going to pick up the pieces, whether you see it or not. And that was a really hard concept for people of but what if they don't? They will. There are still plenty of good people in the world, in these cities that are being targeted, that want to do good and can do good and can use their privilege to do things that are supportive. You don't have to do it all. I was that mom. I joined the PTA. I joined the PTA a long time ago when my daughter started school. But selfishly, and I had to process this, and my therapist was why?
Well, I had to.
Let me tell you. I was let me tell you. One, I have to. But also, I need to know what's happening. I have one daughter, also right before school started, the Annunciation school shooting happened. There was just a bunch of components, right? That I was I need to know what's happening in the school. Valid. And she was okay, fine. She's but if it gets to be too much, you need to consider what that means. But then all of this stuff happened and I was organizing chats and organizing patrols and doing, I was I can do this. I am a capable adult who can do this and I'm good at organizing and doing these things. So I'm going to volunteer for everything.
Everything.
Literally. You name it, my name was on it. And then I got sick.
Yep.
And then a week and a half, and then I got better. And a week and a half later, I got sick again. And then, all of it started from a household illness, but I could not get better. Yeah.
No rest.
And I was
because you probably also weren't resting, Ryan.
No,
you were
of course
organizing
not.
from your phone from bed.
Yes. But also, and then couple that with being a therapist and talking about this 5-6 hours a day, every day, I finally sent out a mass message. I was I cannot heal and get better and keep showing up. And I had to pull out from everything. I had stopped. One day I was just enough is enough. Now, yeah.
And now I'm like, I have my advocacy lane that is not as, I'm going to use the word intrusive, because what I did to myself was like a very intrusive behavior on my life of like taking in all of these things without any intention, honestly, behind it. It was just like, I'm good at it. I can do it. My city's under attack. I need my daughter to be safe, right? Like a really fear-based decision.
That we love you for, because it speaks to
Sure.
your humanity, your
Sure.
advocacy, and your heart, that like you
Yeah.
were willing to drop it all and give it all, but
Yeah.
it caught up to you. And
Yeah.
there is a cost, and there has
Yeah.
to be a lane.
Yeah. Which even still is like, I lost 5 pounds in like 6 weeks, partly because of sick, but also being stressed. Like going back to the book and like your point of like, it's more than just a mental aspect. It is physical. It is emotional. It takes a toll on your relationships. And it doesn't just go away when you stop. Like I am still tired and I haven't done anything for what I was doing for like 3 weeks. And I'm still exhausted.
It will take time.
Yeah.
It will take time to heal that burnout. It takes an incredibly long time. And I notice this, especially with my moms, that it becomes an undercurrent to a certain extent, because like the duty doesn't stop. The show must go on, right?
Right.
But what a beautiful model that you had there for your clients, of being able to say to the people that you're working with, like, I'm not okay and I need a beat. Even this person who's showing up day in and day out, advocating, organizing, supporting you in sessions, who seems to probably on the other end of the couch have it all together. I need time too, and I need to heal too. And I think that it was probably incredibly hard. I have such a hard time taking time for myself when I am sick and things like that. I feel like I'm letting my clients down.
Same.
It's tough, but it's so needed, and it's beautiful modeling that I'm sure made a ripple impact for the people that you work with to give themselves permission to take the day. Nothing is worth more than you.
Yeah.
You know, you need to be okay.
Yeah. I think it's also been interesting from just like a humanity standpoint, and a more like humanistic approach to therapy, of like the self-disclosure piece of it.
Yeah.
You know, and we're like conditioned to never share. Like you do not talk about yourself and to your client, but just like, again, this is a really different time to be a therapist, to be a professional doing this work. And I think people, like you're saying, and like I'm even seeing, are like, they value to know that even I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have my shit together any more than you do. And I think there's like some value in that. Like I can still help talk about it and like bring your anxiety down, right? And we can talk about the fear and the feelings and do the therapy things. But at the end of the day, like I'm still just like, I'm just a girl. I'm just a mom. I'm a wife, not just a mom. I am a mom.
Yes.
I'm a wife. Like
We're only one person.
right. And I also get to have learning experiences that I can bring in and share to you in hopes that it is helpful and supportive, you know?
And I think it is.
Yeah.
There's nothing I love more than when my therapist self-discloses a little. I'm like, give it to me. Or I hear her like kids scream.
Tell me more.
Scream across the room. I'm like, did I just hear your kids scream in your house? How old are they? What's their name?
Tell me everything.
She won't, because her boundaries are so good, and it's great to learn from. But that is also something that I love about this era of therapists, is like the relational, humanistic approach and the bonding I think that social media allows with other clinicians too, and normalizing and gaining tools from other clinicians and humanizing us really allows for like a big impact in this moment, because to have a clean slate therapist, that's not affirming. For me to sit there with you and say, I know, I feel it too. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes is the most validating thing, and the very thing that person needs is just not to feel alone. Which is also why, reminder, another form of advocacy can be finding your few people too, a little group at work, a little pocket in your girlfriends, in that like social circle that you go in, to normalize talking about it. Shame dies in that environment, right? Mm-hmm. We're able to be collective, to lean on others while also advocating and maybe helping people understand or learn things or gain perspectives that they didn't know. And if we're propelling that, then we're propelling that voice forward. Again, snowball effect. Little steps go a long way, you know? So I like your lens of picking your lane, and the lesson that you had with the need for it for your survival.
Yeah. There's also been like an added layer of just real-time exposure therapy almost, which has been like a different thing than I'm used to, right? Because everything is coming at us so fast, and we're all getting the news that, you know, like you open Instagram and you see a video and like everyone sees it at the same time. and I've got people outside of my office who are like, did you just see what happened? I'm like, guess we're talking about it. Guess this is what we're doing today, which is okay. But reminding people too of like, you still get to choose what you're taking in and how you're taking it in. And like, I've been trying to remind my clients too of like, you don't have to sit in the waiting room and like scroll Instagram. Like you can like sit there and prepare for therapy and talk about the things that you want to talk about, not what like the news just told you. Yeah, right. Like, and this kind of idea that like, if I don't look at the news, I'm going to miss something. And like, even if you look at it 5 minutes or 5 hours, you're going to miss something because it's literally never ending right now. And so like the pick your lane, but also like pick your news source, like pick the topics. And I think this goes back to like pre-election conversations too, of like, pick the topics that you're concerned about and like hold value in that you want to focus on. Granted, that's like harder to do now with everything that's flying at us, right? And like all the whiplash and cover-ups, but you can take a break, and that doesn't mean you're less than, or that you're not informed or you're not educated.
Beautiful, and so well said, and so true. This is again that concept of discernment. We don't need to be our own news anchor and post each video and each like knee-jerk thing we see to our story. Because there is misinformation, there is like AI bots, there are people from other countries like planting stuff and scheming, like there are weird things going on in the world. Take a beat, take a breath, decide what you want to say on a topic, and know that you do not have to always say something on a topic. We are not the expert of everything, and that is, I think, a really healthy lesson, that unless we have something valuable, helpful, healthy, important to share, it's okay to take a beat and take care of yourself. It's okay to read your smut book. It's okay to focus on, it's okay to focus on the other stressors in your life, and to just say, and beyond all of it, there's all this going on, right? Your therapist knows you're going through that, right? And they're not judging you for not being focused on this 100% of the time, because they want you to be healthily oscillating too. It's also okay to find wins right now.
Yes.
It's okay to find glimmers right now, to see goodness in humanity right now. Sometimes I have different days, different moods, where some days the swipes of like, great things that happened in the world this week that you didn't see. Sometimes I'm like, things. I'm like, nothing's great. But then sometimes I'm like, that's actually like, I really needed to see this, because that negativity bias is loud. And if we can hack it with a little bit of goodness and see the beauty and the kindness in the world, right? Even yesterday, like I was taking the bus home, and this dude in a ski mask is like helping this veteran with his like hat on and his wheelchair on the bus. And it's just like these different I love living in a city for that reason. Populations coming together to help each other and support each other. He's like, you good, man? All right. Helped him get off the bus to just get back on and keep riding. I'm like, this is humanity, right? And we need to be able to see that good to protect our hope, to protect our goodness.
Yeah. Find the wins and do things that still feel good for you and fill your cup up.
I'm having deja vu to our last chat, because I think it was right pre-election, actually. I'm going to have to re-listen after this. And I remember, maybe it was our first one even, we were talking about worry time, getting outside, glimmers, a lot of these same concepts that we need to come back to, that like, you got to keep taking care of yourself. The world, unfortunately, and it feels cruel at times, does keep spinning. And how can we come back to our truth and our value? And to go back to couples, how can we remember that we love our partner even if we don't agree all of the time, right?
Yeah. I think too, just thinking about like the collective trauma and the constant like vicarious trauma, right? And the re-traumatizing that we're all experiencing, of like, you need to find the wins and the glimmers and the hope and the joy to also be able to like navigate through that trauma. Because if we don't, then we get sucked into that trauma, and that's where we'll live. And that's when things start to fall apart.
And that's why you probably don't need to be reading every deep depth of the Epstein files to be able to believe survivors. Help yourself. You don't need to read other people's perceptions of what they think about these different news topics, right? We'd love to see some accountability. That's what I'm waiting on here. I will not be holding my breath, but that will be the ultimate glimmer for me.
Yeah. And knowing that like probably won't see it.
Yeah.
Right? There can be some acknowledgement that there probably won't be some accountability.
And we can be disgusted, heartbroken, sickened, fearful, frankly, that that's the reality. Because that's what I feel, And I think that that's also okay to lead with too, because that's our humanity, and that's helping clients, again, see the humanness, big theme. Like, this is no joke, and this is not normal, and this is not healthy. And it's okay that you are feeling all of the feelings, because that is your goodness. Moral of the story.
Yeah. What are some takeaways? What are some like things that you leave clients with or leave the people in your life with of how to keep going?
I think I'll start maybe from a couple's perspective because that's what we came in with, and then I'll zoom out into a little bit more individual, right? But from a couple's lens, in these times, we need to lean on our loved ones. And if your partner is truly someone whom you love and respect, a difference in opinion should not be your demise. And your goal, I hope, is to either get into couples therapy to gain some support or to really practice using like a fair fighting rules concept. There's some videos on that. You could Google it. It's great. To really figure out how you guys can talk about it. And something beautiful that my husband and I recently did, newly married, but I recommend for a lot of my couples, is creating like a family mission statement or value statement, right? Because if we have like, let's say these 5 tenets that we come back to, for example, one of mine and my husband's is kindness. When we're talking about one of these topics, maybe even if we have a sliver of difference in how we feel about why something happened or how it happened or whatever it is, we can go back to that value and understand that the way things are being handled are breaking those values. And we could talk about how that feels for us and how we want to come back to that value. Having like a resource or like a pulse check to come back to, I think is huge. Doing like a little values sort, or Brene Brown has a great values activity as well. You know, all these things are free online. So I would recommend doing it whether you're an individual or in a couple, and just really normalize and practice being able to talk about these things with respect, being able to validate someone's opinion if you could see a kernel of truth in it. We don't need to be naysayers. We don't need to be shutting people down. We don't need to be fighting opposites. We need to be coming together for the greater good. Let people change their mind. Let people surprise you. Let yourself see the good in them. And I think from an individual perspective, I loved kind of the way we framed that. And I think we look at it very similarly, that you're allowed to oscillate between grief and joy. You're meant to live in community. You are a social and emotional being who's built to lean on other humans. So I encourage that you do that. I also encourage that we get outside. There's nothing like getting outside, having your morning sun, breathing some fresh air, and seeing the little old lady on your block like sweeping, and kind of like someone having a funny interaction.
You mean shoveling?
Yeah, good correction there.
You mean shoveling?
A dog running up to you and sniffing you, right? Like, the joys might be real micro right now, but we have to find them to be able to keep it moving as humans, to keep living, but also collectively as humans to keep supporting and loving on each other. We're all we got, right? So my end of the story is like, relationships are everything. That's my belief. And you know, you feel your best when you're feeling good in your relationship. So how can you invest in those and use those to support you and uplift you during a really, really challenging time? Even if the only relationship you have that you could talk about this is with your therapist. That's the value of that space too. And so if you are in therapy and you're feeling lonely, or you're really struggling with your partner and these political conflicts or gridlock issues, don't forget that couples therapy, individual therapy are there for you and can really be life-changing, even just to have that support. You don't have to have a reason to enter. You deserve it.
Yeah. And I think just touching on like your values exercise, there's something really supportive and helpful and powerful about having a tangible tool to go back to. Right? Like whether you write it down, whether you keep it in your notes app. Like I do a lot of this with like the parents I work with, of like, make your house rules as the family and like put it up so that everyone knows what the house rules are. Like, right? Everyone was engaged in making that activity. Everyone decorated it. It's up. Now everyone's accountable, and there's no shame in holding someone accountable.
Yep.
And that I think is like, also, it's just a really good tool for relationships and relationship building and like healthy communications and being able to express ourselves of like, we all agreed to this. Like we all agreed to be kind. You're not being kind right now.
And I feel really hurt and scared by that.
You're such a couples therapist, going back to the I statement.
I really need you to be with me in this, right?
Yeah.
Hold them accountable. Tell them how you feel and call to action if we want to keep moving forward. Silently raging out, being resentful, punishing your partner is getting you nowhere. Just divorce, frankly. Like, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
We deserve to be in healthy, happy partnerships is like the ultimate goal.
Yes, absolutely. We kind of just wrapped up a bit, but are there any other final thoughts? Anything else you want to leave people with before you share where people can find you?
It's okay to feel what you're feeling. We are humans who process differently. It's a time to be cautious of things like comparison or judgments of other humans. We are all oscillating. So someone might be having a great day and some might be having their darkest day. Just treat people with kindness and respect and see the impact that will have, not only on your heart, but on that other individual, but the collective society at large. I feel like I've been a little bit repetitive with the concepts that we're talking about. But I think the reality is these are the concepts that are thematically repeating in therapy. Couples, individual, men, women, non-binary folks, like this is the reality of where we're at right now. And it's okay just to normalize just like the clunky, messy humanness of it all and just allow the oscillation is really the big piece. So I hope that in this podcast in general, someone got some nugget of wisdom or information that they can have to normalize their experience, to feel a little bit affirmed or validated in the heart, or to have an idea of where they can maybe go with their partner, where they could strip a little bit of judgment and allow some differences, perhaps, with values alignment.
Yeah. I was thinking this morning before we hopped on, I was like, my season, I've recorded a handful of episodes now, and all of them are just like touching on like politics and what's happening, and you're the only guest who's not directly in Minnesota, like in the cities proper. So just getting your take too from like the outside lens, like having a little bit of that background knowledge of what happened in Chicago this fall and summer. But I was like, a lot of these are going to have the same theme. And then in my head, I was like, I actually don't, like, that's not bothersome to me. It was feeling bothersome, but I was like, no, this is what's happening and this is what people are experiencing. And all of the guests have like different takes and perspective and like the way that they practice. So it'll be a little different, but the underlying theme is the same. And I think that just really speaks to like how prevalent this time is right now for everyone, regardless of what side you're on.
And regardless of where you're at, we are all under the same sun.
Yeah.
So don't forget that. The humans to your right and left are under the same sun. And I also think that the thematic repetition is important because it's the reality of where we're at. So like we could keep a hand on the pulse. And I hope a future season is a lot fluffier and lighter. And we can talk about so much fun, flirty, other fun couple stuff or something like that.
Yes, please.
But that's not life. Life is light and dark and good and bad and sun and moon and all of it. So embrace it.
Yeah.
Embrace it all.
Yeah. Where can people find you on social media? And I'm going to need you to make a video on discernment. So.
Oh, I have to. That's a good one.
You have to now.
I have to.
You have to.
You can find me on Instagram at Therapy with Amanda. TikTok, I think it's Therapy W Amanda. Amanda Ferrari on all socials. Follow along. I like to just give kind of free content on thoughts I'm having and tools. I try to be very psychoeducational, but also informative and normalizing and human and all the things. My relationship with social media is I come in when I have something to say and I want to, and I peace out when I don't have it in me. And that's what works for me. So follow along if you're interested. Check out my videos if you're interested. Save some for later if it might help you and your partner grow a little bit closer. But thank you so much for listening. If you've gotten this far, I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to my voice. Thank you for being here with Ryanne. Thank you, Ryanne, for having me. It was so nice.
Pleasure.
Third time's the charm. It's just been lovely to talk to you as always. So thank you again.
Thank you. And I will link you and all of your social media and all the things, social media only, in the show notes. So
excellent.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to learn more or follow either of us on social media, you can find more information in the show notes. Thanks for your support and listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.